it's cool to think back to the fact that we also had nothing together. At one point, I felt as though I had lost my childhood. Face yourself and really figure out what is bringing you down, and then find the right avenue to take care of it. You know, I don't know what I'm going to do. I've got a mortgage to pay. I've got a baby on the way.
All right, welcome to the Rad Dad Podcast. This is episode 49. I have Kevin Boreland here, and this is the first time we've ever met. So we got connected through a mutual friend. I actually put up a story on my Instagram account for the podcast and just said, hey, I'm looking for new guests. And Parker, somebody that I respect highly, think highly of, he mentioned your name, and I immediately reached out. And you were kind of a hard guy to get a hold of at first.
Right now, man.
I don't know if you were thinking like, who's this weird guy?
No.
You know, why should I talk to him? But I'm glad we made it happen. And it was only like 2 or 3 weeks since we talked. So yeah. I appreciate you being here.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Well, just to get started, tell me a little bit about your upbringing and a few highlights from your childhood.
Yeah. So, I mean, raised by 2 amazing parents that have had plenty of struggles in their life. You know, I don't talk too deeply about that sort of thing right now, but we definitely ran into some struggles a little while down the road, and it doesn't take away the fact that my parents are just incredible. But, you know, between alcoholism is a real thing, so that can be tough on families and parents and the kids, of course. So we did deal with a lot of that, but my parents are just wonderful, and I have amazing memories with my parents. One of my favorites is growing up in Pleasant Grove. We lived like a street above one of the LDS churches, and it had a baseball field, of course. Mm-hmm. And almost every day, my dad and I would walk down with a bucket of balls, my bat and a mitt, and he would just pitch me balls for hours. It felt like, and it's still and probably will forever be one of the highlights of my life. It shows how simple it is to be a fun and involved parent. And then, I mean, my parents always made sure we were taken care of and fed. And we grew up in a very modest household, to say the least, but we just had a great time. You know, it's easy to forget a lot about your childhood, and I try to reflect a lot on it and remember more, but we had some great experiences. I mean, we got to go on a few vacations growing up, and my sisters and I were always out playing. I think the funnest part about my childhood is just the neighborhood that my parents raised us in. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was back in the day where the sun came up, you left the house, you went and knocked on every one of your friends' doors, saw if they could play, and you weren't back till sunset. So, you know.
Can you remember like a distinctive moment that your dad did something you're like, okay, this guy's pretty cool?
Yeah, so my dad's a stonemason, and they're actually some pretty hard dudes. They work really hard. I mean, if I had to go and do like a stone fireplace nowadays, I don't know if I'd make it a day. The physical labor might be okay for me, but you know, how artistic they are, and when I watch him do stone, I'm like, the monotony of it just and putting all those pieces together, just seeing, I mean, watching my dad as a little kid pick up a freaking stone that I could never even think about moving. I saw like, man, my dad is strong, and I'd see his big calloused hands, and I was just so impressed. You know, anytime I was sitting by him, I'd rub his hands, and he had like a permanently broken thumb that didn't get fixed properly. You know, one got shaved off by a saw, one of his fingers, and he just, the strongest hands ever, right? Like, we've got pretty soft hands compared to these guys, and they're just impressive people. And then my mom as well. My mom and dad were both amazing. They're divorced now. They divorced when I was little, but they were both runners. And my mom ran so many marathons through her life, and that was just so impressive. I mean, she had these tree trunk legs, completely jacked, and she could just go run a marathon and finish really high up in the women's. And then my dad the same. When I actually Googled his name, I was able to find him in Runner's Magazine forever ago for like the over 40 division.
That's awesome.
And it was like Kyle Boreland from Utah. I think it was for Boston Marathon.
Did it have a photo?
No photo. It was just an article.
That's cool.
And it was cool because he doesn't talk about that stuff. My mom doesn't really talk about that stuff. But it is cool to dig into their past and see how hard they worked. I mean, they both went and ran an ultra marathon, the same one. And my sisters and I were so little, we didn't even notice exactly what they were doing. I think of that now as I run a mile. I'm like, whoa, there were a lot left. It was through trails, up mountains.
That's crazy.
Just insane. So
it's interesting, like growing up, you know, what you think is normal at some point into your adulthood, you have realizations like, oh, I can't believe my parents did this or made it through this or trained for this. Like, I'm just thinking, so last year I ran my first marathon, and just the time to train, it's like, it's a massive commitment. And we're both of them are runners. I can't even imagine like the sacrifices beyond the physical that they were making, you know, to have that in their lives. At what point did you realize your parents were actually hard workers compared to, you know, other people out there?
Oh man, pretty early. I mean, every Saturday, at least one of them was out like stashing Gatorades for a training run.
Yeah.
I really remember my mom doing it a lot. And she would go out on like a Friday or something and they'd stash Gatorades in bushes along their route.
Yeah.
And it was just unbelievable. And then my dad was always working. My mom was a stay-at-home mom for a little bit of time, and then she went and worked. But I knew, because when it was so cold outside that you didn't feel like you could survive, my dad was out working on a house in the freezing cold for endless hours to make ends meet. And that's impressed me since I was tiny. I mean, going up, and I'd go up to a job site up in one of the developments he was working on, and it was so cold, it just hurt. And there's my dad in a tarp tent built around the part of the home he was working on with the little propane heater.
Yeah.
Not affected at all. It's just, and he's still that way.
That's built different.
He is truly built different.
Yeah. That's awesome. I've had this conversation on the podcast before, but you know, it's like with our generation, I go back and forth, like, how do I teach my kids hard work? Like, I don't live on a farm. I grew up on a farm. My kids aren't going to grow up on a farm, you know, but like the lessons I learned in hard work early on in my life have really benefited me throughout my adulthood. So I've had this conversation a few times, you know, just how do we teach our kids hard work? And I think there's ways to do it. And there's also a balance of, I want to teach them how to work smarter than the previous generations. Because the previous generations, you know, a lot of times they dang near kill themselves, or they bury their mental health and they bury addiction, you know, all these different things, and it comes out later in life and it's dangerous. So I don't know. Part of this podcast is just discussing that exact topic. How can we do better as a younger generation? And as you bring that up,
man, it hits home, because, you know, my mom has dealt with alcoholism. I don't think she's too prideful for me to bring that sort of thing up, because I'm insanely proud of her. I've never been addicted to any substance, and I couldn't imagine what addiction feels like.
Yeah,
I've tried to put myself in the shoes, and you can't unless you've actually dealt with it. And then my dad's dealt with some things as well on the substance side, and that is really hard to overcome. And I believe that, I mean, no matter how impressive you are, that generation was brought up just taught to keep it all inside.
Oh, yeah.
So how could you possibly not turn to a substance to just numb the pain? And, you know, that's something that I've tried to get better at, is, you know, not just burying everything deep inside, having the people I trust, you know, my wife, and then others as well, to help me deal with things.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's wild to now, years down the road, finally be able to talk to my parents about what they've dealt with. And now I'm 29 years old, and I'm just now learning what they've been through in their lives. And that's something I don't want my daughters to learn at 29. I want them to learn once they can comprehend it, like, hey, this is real. These things happen. And always having that open dialogue of, no matter what happens, you come to your parents and we're here for you. Like, you're not going to be punished for things. We're not going to call things mistakes, whatever it may be.
Yeah. A lot of parents love to talk about how they want their kids to be able to come talk to them about anything.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's going to happen if you're yelling at your kids when they're 3 and 4.
Exactly.
Like you're shutting it down right there.
Mm-hmm.
It needs to be that open relationship from the beginning where they're confident to come and talk to you about anything.
Yeah.
You want to make it really bad, you yell at a 3-year-old, a 4-year-old, and wait till they're 16, see what happens, right?
Yeah. And that's where I think a lot of people our age were, and our parents' age, were taught to, have certain things that just become nervous habits, and they feel like they need to hide.
Yeah.
And, be ashamed of things. And,
Yeah.
and that's something that I believe a lot of, us and a lot of my friends who are young parents as well are getting right, is just having that open dialogue with your kids and knowing, like, hey, as a parent, I'm your amnesty here. Like, you come to me for everything because it keeps you safe and I can teach you about things.
Yeah.
And so I completely agree. I mean, I am guilty plenty of times of getting frustrated with my kids, but, being mindful of it.
And that's honestly, that's a step that, a lot of the earlier generations never even experienced. Just being mindful of it.
Yeah.
It's funny because, online and on the memes, and then in reality, millennials get a bad rap for like being lazy and not knowing how to work hard and blah, blah, blah. But this is episode 49 of this podcast. And if there's one lesson I've learned, it's that there are a lot of young dads that are doing really good. They're trying hard, and like they actually really want to be present and be there for their kids' upbringings. Like a lot of our generation doesn't want to work till 7 or 8 at night and make all this money. We'd rather trade that for more time with our families.
Yep.
So it's a really cool shift. I'm not saying everyone in our age group is there, but I think there is a big movement, and it gives me hope for the future rather than feeling crushed and anxious about the future.
Agreed. And I think a lot of us are getting it right of like, I work my tail off. I'm an entrepreneur. Like I haven't made it to where I want to be financially yet. Right. And I have to work really hard to get there. But I'm also mindful of the fact that, if someone's not going to die or lose everything, if I don't answer the phone at 7 p.m., it's okay.
Yeah.
Things can wait. And also we're all figuring out time blocking and making sure family's a priority.
Yeah.
I mean, if I've realized one thing through experiences of my friends or really close acquaintances, if you don't hold that family unit together, there's no reason to have a successful business anyway. I'd rather just go get an hourly job somewhere, have guaranteed holidays, and have my kids know me.
Yeah. I think every entrepreneur, business owner has had those thoughts. There's so many days I could tell you I wish I had a 9 to 5.
Right.
But yeah, there is that balance. Do you feel pressure being the man, the husband, the father that has to hold this unit together? Yeah.
And I credit my wife for being the glue that holds it together. Without her, I don't know what my household would be like. But yeah, there is pressure, and my wife and I have a lot of conversations about that. I mean, we've gone through plenty of hard times. We've been together since, I was 17 when we started like officially dating, and then we got married really young because I was going into the military. So we got married at 19 years old. So we actually
was this like a military
together.
Like, hey, let's get married because I'm shipping off?
Well, yeah, I left and I'd finished boot camp, and I went into my training pipeline, and that was a 2.5 year pipeline of training. And then Kinsey went up and did the dance team at Utah State.
Okay.
And when we were both apart, we're like, man, I'm not like, obviously I worry about her safety, but I'm not worried about her. I trust her. Like I can focus.
Right, yeah.
I can focus. This is the one. And she felt the same about me. So I got to come home for a quick Christmas break because all the instructors wanted to leave, so they sent us home too. I had about a week at home and went to a ring store and called my aunt, and I said, hey, I don't have any money. Can you help me? This is really expensive. She's like, yeah, how much is it? They're very successful. They do very well. I was like, it's a few $1,000s. she's like, oh yeah, here's my credit card number. Just pay me back whenever you can. So I got on like a $100 a month payment plan for the next couple of years to pay off the actually very cheap ring that my wife still wears and will wear for the rest of our life. Yeah. And, I go off on tangents, but in saying that, we've grown up together. I mean, we moved out to, when I was finishing training in Coronado, we lived I finally got to live off base because we were married, but I wanted to live really close to the base because sometimes I had to be at training at
what branch?
4 a.m., the Navy.
Okay.
So we lived in a little 405 square foot studio apartment on Coronado together. You could not get space. Like if we needed, mostly her, if she needed a break from me, it's like, I'm going to go sit in the bathroom. You sit on the 5 square foot balcony. Yeah. And we'll figure it out. We were broke as heck. We were living in tiny sleeping quarters, and it's just special to think about because now we do okay now, and we've got like a nice house and a great life, and it's cool to think back to the fact that we also had nothing together. And I'll get back to your original question of the pressure. I think every male feels that pressure in our society, and until you come out and actually voice what you're feeling, you're just going to feel it by yourself because honestly, no one else understands except for you. Yeah. And it's really scary because I also see it from my wife's end of, you get the text, hey, when are you coming home? Kids are climbing all over them. They're screaming. Yeah. The house is a wreck. And you're like, well, I'm working. You got to find that balance. Yeah. And I think balance is real, but it's very, very hard to find. And sometimes it's just not completely possible. So you just have to roll with what you've got. Yeah, lots of pressure. And I've put myself under too much pressure at times where it has caused my mental health to get so bad that I just needed to take a step back and really reevaluate. Yeah. Sorry for that long answer.
No, that's
I
perfect.
like to show off about my wife.
I love it. That's something we have in common. My wife and I were married very young as well. She was 18, I was 21. And I want to come back to that topic. But first, why military?
I have trouble answering that. I didn't have like a moment as a child where I was like, I'm going to join the military. Yeah. And I really don't. I don't talk very deeply about my military career. But I think with what I was dealing with as a teenager, because I didn't live with my dad. I lived with my mom. But the pain of alcoholism, it caused her to need to just like move away. We just needed to get her away. She was working up in Park City at the time for a hotel, and she's like, I'm commuting from Utah County up there. I have no one here. I'm completely alone, and it's not getting any better. I need to move. And I told her, well, I want to stay at Pleasant Grove, so I think it's good that you move away. I'm going to stay here. And I ended up living with some family friends who I looked up to a lot, really great family. But with that, I just decided one day, I must have been like a sophomore in high school, that I was just going to go the military route. I didn't know what I was going to do, but then...
You're a recruiter's dream.
I know, right?
As a sophomore, they're just like...
Yeah, they're like, you're mine. But anyway, went in right at 18. I thought about even graduating early and get my mom to sign the paper so I could go, but decided to finish the year. And I'm glad I did because, I just fell more in love with my now wife during that time. But yeah, military was just, I really think I needed to challenge myself and get out of my comfort zone. And that's exactly what I did. I went from being one of the fastest kids who was also one of the strongest kids, at my school, varsity athlete, to standing in a line next to a bunch of dudes that were 2 times my size, solid muscle, could run a mile faster than me. And I went from being the fastest to one of the slowest, back of the group. How do I get to the front? And, pushed myself to get there and ended up doing pretty dang well. So, and then five and a half years into my military career, I got I returned home from a deployment perfectly fine. And we were actually doing currency jumps out of the helicopter into the water. And unfortunately, normally you either go from 15 feet and 0 knots or 10 feet, 10 knots. And you just slide out. Super simple, done it hundreds of times. Mine went really badly. As I went to slide out the door on a 15 and 0, it seemed as though the helicopter had shot up. And as I was slipping out, I tried to stop myself. So I just fell face first and I hit the water.
Oh, gosh.
Gave me a really bad traumatic brain injury, shoulder injury, a bunch of stuff wrong. I was getting vertigo because the muscles behind my eyes were all jacked up. I was incredibly suicidal because of the TBI. It was just messing with my brain. And I would tell my wife, like, I don't know why, but I want to die. Like, I don't want to be here. I don't get it. And I just weep to her. But anyway, with that injury, I ended up getting disqualified from my job. So I didn't know what I was going to do. I just knew that I had about 6 months left on my contract. And I needed to convince my unit to keep me there rather than send me to the needs of the Navy, like kind of a normal Navy job where you go to a ship. Because that's kind of the risk when you get hurt in my job. Yeah. And they ended up keeping me there. I just stood watch for 6 months while my guys actually prepped for another deployment. And from there, I just had decided to, I don't know what I'm going to do. I've got a mortgage to pay. I've got a baby on the way. What the heck is my life going to be?
Was your original plan to stay in for a while?
Yeah, I planned on, I was looking at even just transferring over to the Army.
Okay.
To go a different route, a different SOCOM route with them. And that obviously didn't end up working out. So I was like, what the heck am I going to do? I have no money. You don't make a ton of money in the military. I had invested, so I had bought a property out in San Diego. And then we had a baby on the way. I had a wife to take care of. And I decided rather than
First kid on the way?
Yeah, first kid on the way.
Man. Talk about a crossroads.
Yeah, it was stressful. Instead of watching movies and sitting around all night on watch, I decided to get my real estate license, and that's when I jumped into real estate.
There you go.
So
okay.
that's what when I got out of the military, I had joined a pretty large team here in Utah, and it just wasn't a good fit for me. I felt a plateau coming very soon. I was like, I can't grow here.
So what year was that?
That was
pre-COVID?
So I got back in 2018. I got hurt July of 2018.
Okay.
And I did what you do in the military. I hid the injury in order to not go to the needs of the Navy.
Yeah.
I continued doing my job, which just made it worse. And then once I finally decided to speak up, with instruction from my wife, because I was a complete wreck at that point. We were worried about my mental health and my life, actually. They ended up saying, yeah, you can't do any of this anymore. So... And then I ended up getting out in October of 2020. So
okay,
hasn't been all that long.
Yeah. When you were at that crossroads, how did you make the decision of where you wanted to go next? Was it like consulting with your wife? Was it just taking shots in the dark? Tell me about that process.
Yeah, I need to be better at consulting with my wife.
Don't we all?
I credit her big time for that, because I'll just get home and be like, hey, I had this idea. And she's like, cool. I'm like, yeah, I started it. So it's a thing. Oh, cool. Maybe talk to me next time. But anyway, yeah, oh man, I'm trying to even think what was on my mind. It was kind of a blur at that point, honestly. All that is still kind of a blur because it was such a disaster mentally. But I must have told her, hey, I want to get into real estate. So started the online courses. I mean, it's pretty dang simple to get a real estate license, and then succeeding in it's pretty tough. But
especially Utah, man.
Yeah, incredibly oversaturated. Everyone knows 10 agents.
Did you know you wanted to come back to Utah?
Yeah, when I first left Utah, I was like, I'm never coming back. This place sucks. Yeah. But then a little while in, we were like, yeah, we're going to go back to Utah. And we wanted to be in Draper, so now we're in Draper.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
So
but kind of, I guess, a little bit of consulting, but also shots in the dark. Like, I could do this if I talk to the right people and learn how to do it properly.
I feel like our age group, it's a lot more common to have those crossroads decisions because it is not typical anymore to go work at a place for 30 years, collect your retirement, right off into the sunset, right?
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of career changes, which, comes with a lot of life change as well. And it's just, sometimes it's hard to make those decisions alone. And sometimes it's harder to make them in marriages, right?
Yeah.
Because, you have to support and be the provider for the family at the same time. And while all this was going on, you guys are having your first kid.
Yep.
Tell me about that experience of becoming a father.
Amazing. I didn't know what to expect. When we heard it was a girl, it was still COVID time, and I was still working on processing out. So during COVID time, they moved everyone at my unit into the hotel on base and said, you're sheltered here. Your family can't visit you.
Oh, God.
You're stuck here because we can't contaminate.
This is like March?
The group. Something like that. I don't even remember.
2020.
I mean, COVID was new.
Yeah.
So early in the year of 2020. And my job was to be on watch at the unit. And then every day I would go pick up everybody's food and I would deliver it to the
DoorDash.
hotel. I was basically the DoorDash in a big duty van. Everyone would come out and get their food. And that was it. And then I'd just sit there. And I was actually getting pretty depressed because Kinsey and I moved her back to Utah. So she was living at her mom's house.
Okay.
And now I'm in this empty condo with just a mattress. And I'm dealing with all the repercussions of my injury that I didn't handle properly when it comes to the brain. And I thought they were going to let me move with her because that was the initial plan. They're like, you got 6 months left. I convinced them to let me do this skill bridge program for 6 months so I could work as an unpaid intern, basically, to bridge my skills into the civilian sector.
Okay.
But because of COVID, I get a call, hey, you have to come back and shelter in place in San Diego. And I was like, okay, but my wife's in Utah and we're having a baby in months.
Yeah.
And then it got to weeks. And it just kept creeping in. So anyway, I was able to convince them to let me move, I think, a week or two before the baby arrived. So I got to be there, and it was just incredible. When I was excited, but I didn't know what to expect. And the first time I laid eyes on that girl, I was laughing because of her cone head, and I was bawling my eyes out. And I thought that as a husband, I was unstoppable. But then I looked at my daughter, I was like, ooh, I'm a freaking superhero. Like nothing can stop me. I don't care what it is.
Yeah.
Nothing's going to stop me from keeping this girl safe, keeping a roof over her head, and keeping food on the table. Don't care what it is and how uncomfortable I have to be. It's going to happen.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, I've always been a very motivated individual, but there's no motivation I've experienced more powerful than the day my son was born, my first child. It's like, if you thought you had a reason to wake up in the morning before, it just 10x'd.
Oh yeah.
Immediately, it's a cool feeling to have. And sometimes we, it dwindles and we forget and we get caught up in the day-to-day worries. But like, if you're a dad, just look into your kid's eyes, that's all you got to do. That'll give you plenty of drive.
Yeah.
That's my experience, at least.
Yeah.
So tell me about, post-military to present. What has Kevin been up to?
Oh, it's interesting. A lot of stuff. So like I said, I jumped into the fire of real estate. I was at a large team, and their model just wasn't for me. Nothing wrong with what they do. I didn't see much growth happening there. So I decided to go solo in real estate. I just went and joined a brokerage, and I was like, okay, here we go. I have no money, and I have to succeed. I don't really have a choice. And my hard work ended up paying off. Ended up doing pretty dang well my first year, second year, third year. It's been a great career. But at the same time as real estate, I've invested a lot of money into companies, getting on the cap table of multiple startups. Just because I love business. I love the game of business. I think it's amazing, and you learn a lot, and you meet a lot of people. And then I also founded a beverage company recently, and we're already on shelves in 7 or 8 states in the Southeast. And we're a hemp-derived THC and CBG beverage, and we can sell direct to consumer in all 50 states. And it has just been amazing. If you told me I would be in beverage 8 months ago, I would have laughed at you and walked away and went and did more real estate prospecting. And now 7 months later, we have sunny days, and it's been really cool. I see it going to the moon.
Yeah, I think I do as well.
Yeah,
I've been involved and networked with a lot of businesses in the last 8 years, and yeah, just going through your website and the whole concept. And, I know a little bit about the drink industry. I'm super excited for you.
Thank you.
There's got to be a connection with the product, experiencing alcoholism through your parents, whatever it is, and your brain injury.
Yeah, for sure. I've never had a drink in my life. I committed at a really young age to not do it, just because I saw how it affected such a strong, powerful woman. It broke her, truly.
Yeah.
Divorce breaks people, but alcohol didn't just break my mom, but it destroyed her. And I watched it happen, and my sisters watched it happen. And getting into this side, the non-alcoholic, I don't necessarily even call it alternative, because I'm not against the alcohol industry at all. But an additional option that can really help is just fantastic, because,
it's about time,
right?
For something else.
Something, right? Alcohol's been so huge, and I'm okay with it continuing to be something. I think certain sectors of alcohol are really cool, and I'm not against people drinking if they drink, responsibly and like an adult.
Yeah.
But it is also a very dangerous substance, and it's a very dangerous legal substance. But, having that option for people to be able to turn off still, because I know myself. I mean, there are nights that I don't care what it is, I'm not able to turn my brain off.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's wrong to sometime to use something at time, sit down and have a drink to be able to relax. And sunny days is the perfect option. And I also saw in the military how much my buddies freaking drank. It was just insane. So anyway, there's a big why behind it. I saw a category of beverages that was valued at, $5+ billion at the time. And that was really surprising to me. Oh, the hemp drink space is currently valued at $5.8 billion. But then Diageo, alcohol superpower, they say that in the next 7 to 8 years, it'll probably be worth $200 billion. So I said, that's a lot of market growth potential that we can eat up if we do this right. So let's go do it right. And we have. I mean, many brands fall short. Their branding's not great, and their taste just isn't good. And we've nailed both, along with many other things. But then there's the human reason why. And it's just having that great option for people to be able to sit back, sip on a drink, relax, and be present. I mean, people drink Sunny and they're like, oh, I forgot the world is this colorful. Like, this is really, this is nice. I can live in the present with my fellow humans for this short time and not worry about anything else. And that's pretty cool.
I need to get some in the fridge over here for the podcast.
Yeah, I will fill that thing for sure.
Awesome. How has fatherhood helped you in your business journey?
Well, for one, like I mentioned, the first time I laid eyes on my kid, when I saw her, I was just like, nothing's going to stop me. And now I have 2 kids. I've got a 4-year-old, a 1-year-old, both girls. But in business, it keeps me in check, not only hungry and willing to work. That's a given.
Yeah.
But it forces me to say, okay, am I analyzing this properly? Is this worth my time away from my kids? if we do analyze a deal, we'll call it, and it makes a ton of sense. Like, okay, now I can check the box of this being worth some time away from my kids during the day. Is my likelihood of losing a ton of money there? Am I only putting into it what I can stand to lose and still survive and not lose my child's home? Mm-hmm. All that sort of stuff. I mean, it keeps me in check. Like I said, it has caused me to force myself to deeply analyze things. And if I don't know how to analyze something properly, find the people who are able to do it, who know what they're doing. So I'm not just like jumping into things and blowing money places, wasting time for something that's not going to come to fruition.
Yeah, I love it. The other reason I think getting married young is a superpower in the connection with being a business owner is that there's a lot of people that can kill it and grow a business, and they're young and they're stupid. They make dumb decisions financially, with their time, whatever it is. They're just not responsible. I feel like getting married young gave me a ton of responsibility really early in life. And, we didn't have kids for 6 or 7 years, but I still had to provide for her. Right? Oh, yeah. We both put ourselves through school without debt. We worked full time and went to school full time. Like, we struggled together. And that's what our marriage is built on, is just the struggle, this connection that we built. It wasn't built on other things that can crumble and ruin a marriage.
Yeah.
Right? It was built on a really strong foundation. And I feel like we're just getting started, I look forward to the next 30 years with Katie, and I just get so happy and so excited. So that's my take on getting married young. I think. Oh yeah. Maybe it's a hot take, but I think it can be absolutely beneficial in so many ways. And I know it's not the norm, but I don't know. It's worked out for us.
Oh yeah, I think it's incredible. I mean, I thought I was mature as a teenager, living at I'll call him my guardian's house. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Food's always there. It's warm, all that, and then we get engaged and we're apart the entire year. I think we saw each other like maybe 25, 30 days of that year. That's engagement. So that was a cool another, test on us.
Yeah.
It really showed, wow, this is worth it. We are ridiculously in love and this is going to happen. But then we get married and Kinsey moves out we fill a Penske truck and move out to San Diego to this studio apartment that I mentioned that I just picked and put a lease on for the most amount of money I've ever spent in my life. And yeah, we grew up together in the same household. There was a lot to learn. You have this idea of what marriage is, and you can picture it as a young man, what you expect it to be, and it seems so simple, and you don't really think about the fact that money and bills being paid every month, it doesn't just happen.
Yeah.
And takes a lot. So it's so special, and I'm really excited for, just like you said, the next 30 years with Kinsey to see what we do. And one thing that just amps me up so much is, like I said earlier, just I get to look at anyone in the world, wherever my companies end up going, who come to me, maybe give my wife crap, like, oh, your husband has these successful companies, you're so spoiled. And I can look at them and say, I went into the Navy with my last $20, $20. I remember giving the $20 bill because you have to pay for your uniforms. I gave $20. The rest of my uniform bill went as debt, so I didn't get my first couple of paychecks during
They hit you with debt?
They hit you with debt. And Kinsey came into the marriage with more from a car accident that she had a super small settlement on. And I was like, whoa, like she's got dough.
Yeah.
And she went through all these phases of life with me, of having nothing and then having something and then financially having nothing again, and believing in me to start my own businesses. And that's really cool because I know I'm going to make it so she is unbelievably comfortable in the future.
Yeah.
And I will always be able to look at her and think about us as freaking teenagers with nothing. Mm-hmm. And that's really exciting. And one thing that I want to kind of show off about with my wife is she, other than like little nanny jobs out in California, she's been stay at home. Mm-hmm. But As soon as we came back to Utah, she was a stay-at-home mom. Obviously, we had the baby, and she's an incredible mother. But when our second baby was born, Nora, when Nora was 6 weeks old, Kinsey came up to me and she said, "Hey, I need something in addition to being a mom." And we've had that conversation a lot. Like, what do you want? I feel like there's something missing. Yeah. She said, "I want to become a nurse." I said, "Okay, well, what's the plan here? Like, we've got this little bean, we've got the beast running around, this, 3.5-year-old. And she's like, "Oh, I already got in. School starts in a week and a half." So we were
it's
like,
kind of
okay,
payback from some of the decisions.
Exactly. She hit me with what I've hit her with many times.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we've been paying for nursing school out of pocket. Government's not doing us any favors, unfortunately. But that's okay. And she's, 2 kids, a life to live, teaches dance, 4.0 in nursing school, an accelerated program. Like, she truly is a badass. And it's amazing to look at her. And she motivates the crap out of me. I look at her and I'm like, she's a beast. Like, I need to keep working really hard to be able to keep up with this girl.
I love that
monster.
I love that the both of you realize she needs a purpose outside of motherhood, because women can get lost in motherhood and it can really affect them.
Yeah.
And then what happens when the kids are graduated and gone? Mm-hmm. What's their purpose? It's dangerous.
Oh, yeah.
So I love that you guys were able to make that decision mostly together, right?
Mostly, yeah. I was proud of her. We had, over the years, we had this conversation. She's like, I'm missing something. I don't know what it is, but I know there's something there, because she was a dancer at Utah State, like, had a great life, and was a student, left college early just to come with me out to San Diego, and dropped everything.
Yeah.
So from there it was like, okay, follow Kevin around. Now I have baby. Deal with Kevin. Deal with baby. And nothing else outside of the house. I'm so proud of her to come to that realization. And luckily we're in the situation where she told me. I was like, okay, cool. Let's get it done.
Yeah. That's awesome. So if someone came to you with a box full of everything you've ever lost in your life, what would be the first thing you look for?
Man, that's a very good question. A box full of everything I've lost in my life, and what do I need to find?
Physical or non-physical?
Yeah. It's wild to dig into my brain and actually go through things and realize, like, oh, I've lost things.
Yeah.
And it seems like a lot to me. And I've never really dug into that. Man, I'd say, and this is pretty hardcore, at one point I felt as though I had lost my childhood. Mm-hmm. I actually, there's a piece of me that there's these awesome memories, like when we discussed it at the beginning. That was kind of a hard question for me to answer. You probably could tell.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to collect these incredible memories, because I have little flashbacks of just how amazing it was. But then a certain age hit when things just got kind of bad. Mm-hmm. And it's like a dark pit that I just have kind of cut out of my life. And then it brightens back up at a certain age.
Like, you don't have memories of that?
I think my mind has protected me from memories.
Yeah.
Although there are really good ones mixed in. It all just kind of got looped in. So I would honestly, like, that'd be a really big box. And it would, I'd pull this giant book out. Mm-hmm. And there would be really bad memories mixed in there. Like, I was a really depressed kid. I felt really lonely from like 5th grade to graduating high school. It was really, really hard. But I'd need to, I think about this giant book that I'd pull out of that box, and I would just go through it.
It'd be kind of scary.
It would be terrifying.
Yeah.
Kind of facing myself in a way, mm-hmm. and unboxing those memories. I wasn't abused or anything, but just watching my mom go through what she did was really hard. And I'd just go and, go through those pages, and I would start to piece back that darkness that I think my brain has tried to keep me safe if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a really good answer.
Thanks.
If you were to build the tool belt for fatherhood, what would you include on that tool belt?
I would include a device that I don't know what it would read. It would probably be heart rate. But when you're dealing with this little child that is just so amazing and so pure and also such a pain in the butt, to just it would remind me. Like, I don't know if I'm wearing a watch and it like vibrates and it's like, that means, hey, take a breath, chill out.
Yeah.
Like, you can't always control everything. I've noticed in fatherhood, it's like, I'll find myself wanting control. Yeah. Like, well, why do I have to listen? Because I said so. Like, that's not a good answer.
That's how we were raised.
Yeah, exactly.
So
it comes out. Yeah, because I said you need to do that. That's why. Like, no, that's not a good reason. So I'd have something that gives you a gentle reminder of like, hey, really take a breath and try to communicate well with this child.
Okay.
That one would be good. It's really important for people to be able to balance their life, and whether or not you think balance is real doesn't matter. But man, I have experienced personally, when I first got into real estate, I was under the impression that I just needed to work 24 hours a day. Mm-hmm. And that's literally what I did. I'd probably get a couple hours of sleep, and it was necessary at the time, but I could have done things a little bit better. So I don't know what this would be, but I guess a freaking calendar that forces you to fill out the times and dates that you're spending undistracted time with your children, and you're like locked to a chair until you select those things, and they can never be overwritten. There you go. I don't know if you've got anything else, but I could probably use more things on my tool belt.
Yeah. No, those are some great ones. I'll take those two any day.
Yeah. What do you have? After all these people you've gotten to speak with.
I think the number one theme for me would be just patience.
Yeah.
I didn't learn that growing up. I'm still trying to learn it in all aspects of my life, but oh man, sometimes like your kids just, even at a young age, they know how to just push your buttons.
They're so smart.
But yeah, as I was saying, just having patience with myself, because this is my first time being a dad.
Yeah.
You know, just giving myself some grace. So, all right. A few more quick questions. The first one is, if you could go back 20 years and spend 5 minutes with your dad, but he didn't know you were you, what would you tell him?
Man. But I know my dad is my dad. He just, okay, I like that. I would tell him to go and take care of the things emotionally that he's held inside. I think that's what eventually broke my dad. My dad reached a breaking point that was really, really bad. Mm-hmm. And I fully believe that it's because he didn't handle things. I mean, you know, between his brother dying and a really gnarly divorce and whatever happened as a child, you never know, right? They just don't talk about it. Mm-hmm. I'd say, man, go figure it out. Like, you can face yourself and really figure out what is bringing you down, and then find the right avenue to take care of it.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that.
Mm-hmm. And I do the same thing with my mom.
Yeah.
Do the same thing with mom. Go unpack it.
Yeah.
Go find somebody you can trust, probably a professional, and unpack this.
Yeah.
You need it off. You carry enough weight. So get it off. It's unnecessary. Go and live your life. Go see the beauty of the world.
Yeah.
And once those things go away, it's going to hurt really bad, but just go and figure it out. I'd do it for both of my parents, and I would be so happy to be able to do that.
Okay. I love it. Do you think the happiest you've ever been is the happiest you'll ever be?
No. I think I've really learned, it's funny actually, during building Sunny Days, my why behind it on the human level rather than the business level.
Yeah.
I've learned a lot like typing what my company's about. You know,
Okay.
who's our target audience and
Yeah.
why? What do they strive for?
Mm-hmm.
And all of it's me. It's what
Just
I strive
describing
for.
yourself,
I'm
yeah.
describing what I'm striving for, human connection and seeing the beauty and being present and knowing that when I'm on my deathbed, I don't want to have regrets about time missed. And I think, oh man, the answer is no. There's still so much happiness to be had, and I have such a positive outlook on what is to come.
Well, I hope the answer will never be yes.
Oh, sorry, was it? Yeah. Okay. Cool.
You know,
Perfect.
you
Yeah.
get what
Yeah.
I'm saying.
I get what you're saying now. I got lost for a second
Hopefully
there.
there's always-
I was like, wait, did I say yes?
No. You're good. Well, just to wrap up this podcast, I ask all my guests the same question at the end, and that is, if there's one message you want to leave with your kids when you're no longer here, what is that message?
That they are so unbelievably loved, and no matter how, you know, mom and dad are acting, whether we're grumpy or super happy, no matter what, that the world is turning because they exist.
Mm-hmm.
And that I would truly do anything in the world to make sure they're happy and safe, and that they need to do anything in the world to make sure they're happy and respected for the rest of their life. And, you know, I would just say to Ava and Nora that there aren't words that I can put into how much I love you guys and how special you are. And, you know, I can't put it into words.
Awesome.
I am here because of them.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. I love it. Well, I really appreciate you coming on the podcast and sharing your stories, insights, and wisdom. And
My pleasure.
I'm excited for this friendship, and
Yeah.
I really appreciate you coming on. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.